Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Criminally, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today I finished my Read What You Own challenge. Thank for that. So I'll start by very quickly describing what the Read What You Own challenge is in case you don't already know. So the concept is that you set yourself a target of a number of books that you already own that you're going to read before you buy any new books. I always set my target at 100 books for this challenge, and this is the fourth time that I've done it, and it was by far the hardest one for me. I really struggled this time, particularly in the second half of it. And I think there are a couple of reasons for that. But I also wanted to talk in this video about what I actually found hard, because it wasn't not buying books. So the concept of the Read What You Own challenge is really, or one of the reasons I've started doing it is that I was conscious I had a terrible habit of buying books and just never getting around to reading them. I've got, you can't see, but I've got the shelves behind me here, which are double stacked. So there's another row of books behind the books you can see. I've got piles of books down on the floor there. I've got a TBR cart next to me here, which is rammed with books, and then in my garage I've got boxes and boxes and boxes of books, and then I've also got a Kindle or e-readers that have got 3,000 books on. So I had a terrible habit with buying books that I had no chance of ever getting through all of them. So the Read What You Own challenge is a way to reflect on your own library, to enjoy your own library of books rather than constantly being distracted by other books that are out there, by new books that will come out. One of the things you can do with the Read What You Own challenge is set your own rules for it, which you can use to give yourself get out clauses. You can specify reasons or situations where it would be acceptable for you to buy a book or receive a book. But typically when people do that, if you read that book that you've bought after the start of your challenge, then you can't count it towards your target, your 100 books or whatever it is. So let me just reflect on my last Read What You Own challenge then and give you some stats. So I started this time on the 29th of January, and I started it just after having done another Read What You Own challenge. So this is the fourth time I've done it. The third time I did it, I started in November and finished at the end of January, and then I immediately started another one. That was definitely a mistake. That was my first mistake. So it took me, but whereas that previous one started in the beginning of November, finished at the end of January, so it took me about 3 months, a bit under 3 months. This time around, it's taken me just over 5 months. So I started on the 29th of January, finished on the 8th of July. So it took me a lot longer. And the reason for that is when I did my third Read What You Own challenge, I think I only read one book that didn't count towards the challenge. So I read 101 books. This time around, I read 134 books. So I read 34 books that I either got sent by authors or bought myself to participate in group reads or something like that. That was one of my my get out clauses, was I could buy books to participate in booktube events and things like that. So I read 34 books that I didn't need to read to get to that 100 book total. So that is definitely the reason why, one of the reasons why it took me longer this time. And the thing I really struggled with this time was not buying books. So I think the first time I did it, I really struggled with not buying books. I kept on seeing people talking about books and thinking, oh, I really want to buy that book. Or just hearing about books in some way, and I ended up making a list of all the books that I hadn't bought during that challenge, and lo and behold, at the end of that first challenge I then went out and bought about half of those books. So it was kind of, in a way, a bit self-defeating. This time around I didn't struggle with not buying books at all. Now maybe partly that was because I did give myself more get out clauses. So as I've said, I said I could receive books in from authors, whereas when I did it the third time round, I was like super hardcore about it. And if somebody approached me and said, can I send you my book to review? I said, no, sorry, I'm doing this challenge at the moment. I can't accept anything. So I was much more relaxed, and that meant I had more books come in, and lo and behold, they attracted me and I wanted to read them, and I ended up reading these 34 books that I didn't need to read. If I'd not read those 34 books, I would have finished on the 2nd of June. So I would have finished like 5 weeks earlier. But yeah, it wasn't not reading books, not being able to buy books, sorry. It wasn't not being able to buy books that I struggled with this time. It was the fact that I felt like the challenge was shaping my reading. I felt like, particularly towards the end, when I just really wanted to get it done, I was making decisions about what to read to help me get through the challenge more quickly, rather than because it was a book I wanted to read. Now, that doesn't mean I read any books that I didn't enjoy or, you know, that I didn't want to read in some way. But one of the primary reasons why I chose particular books to read was that they would help me get through the challenge more quickly. So I probably read, you know, towards the end, a few more shorter things, and I definitely read more books that I already owned rather than reading some of the new things that come in that maybe I really wanted to read. So I found that really, really difficult, and I felt like it was having, in some ways, a negative impact on my reading, because I was being, you know, I was forcing myself down a certain route with my reading rather than just reading like freely and naturally, if you like. So it's definitely been a challenge, and I wanted to take my hat off, if I was wearing a hat at this point in the video, to Michael K. Vaughan, who is doing a 500 book challenge at the moment, which is just an insane number. He is well through that now. I think he's up, I can't remember exactly what book he's up to, but he's certainly well into like the hundreds. I think he's about 150, 160 or something like that. So I'm confident he's going to finish that 500 book challenge, but that will be a phenomenal achievement when he does. So yeah, hats off to Michael for doing that. I also wanted to reflect quickly on a video I saw the other day on Shelley Swearingen's channel, which I think kind of plays into this a little bit. So Shelley was talking about our kind of obsession with making lists. So, you know, particularly on BookTube, but, you know, readers in general, making like long TBR lists, or, you know, setting off on projects to read all of the books by a particular author and things like that. And what Shelley was saying is, you know, she feels like doing that is a way to feel like we have a bit of control in our lives. You know, there's something about planning which is quite satisfying. It makes you feel like you are in control of your own destiny, rather than the whims of, you know, so many things out there that might impact, you know, what happens to you. And indeed, you know, I'm recording this video the day after that massive IT outage, which has caused, you know, significant disruption, completely out of the control of, you know, any individual out there, but has caused, you know, an unexpected disruption to people's lives. So there are so many factors today in the world that can do that to us as individuals, that doing things like making lists or setting yourself particular reading projects can be a way for you to feel like you are, you know, you are in control. And certainly for me, I think doing the Read What You Own challenge has been, you know, something like that. It's been about me wanting to feel like I'm in control of my book buying, and I've certainly had a big problem with buying books in the past. You know, I've got far too many books, and the Read What You Own challenge has become for me kind of a reset, a way of, you know, putting the brakes on that book buying. What I would say though is I think now I've broken the bad habits that I had. I think through repeatedly doing the Read What You Own challenge, and obviously time will tell on this, but I do feel like my book buying is a lot better than it used to be. And certainly after the second time I did the challenge, I was buying less books. And as I say, I haven't, you know, despite having done, basically being on a book buying ban, with a few exceptions, since the beginning of November, so for, what, 8 months now, I haven't found it a real struggle not buying books. So I do feel like I'm a lot better at controlling my book buying than I used to be. And in particular, I think one of the reasons for that is I managed to break my relationship. I managed to break up with Amazon. And I've made some videos about this. I'm no longer using the Kindle ecosystem. And whereas I had a terrible habit before of like going in every day and checking the Kindle daily deals and buying books just because they were cheap, you know, I haven't been doing that. And I feel like I'm more in control of my book buying because of that. So, you know, ultimately the Read What You Own challenge, I think, on me personally, has had a positive impact, even though it was a real struggle this time to get through it. But I do think, like, if for me the purpose of doing the Read What You Own challenge was to control my book buying, then I think it has. I think it's done that. I think it's, you know, even beyond the end of the challenge, I think I'm going to be better at not buying books, you know, at a whim. But we will see, you know, time will tell on that. And you can hold me accountable. If I turn up in 2 months' time with a 100 book haul, then feel free to tell me off in the comments. So yes, those are my reflections on the Read What You Own challenge and how it's been for me this time around. If you are going to do it, and I do think it's a positive thing to do, but if you are going to do it, my recommendation would be, don't give yourself a load of reasons why you can buy books, because that will just end up making the challenge longer. And plan it. Think about, in the months that you think it's going to take you to do that challenge, think about and anticipate the things that might come up. So are there going to be, you know, group reads you're going to want to be involved in? What will you do in that scenario? You know, think about things like that. It's easy with BookTube, you know, quite often to predict what events are going to be happening month on month. So you know, and this in a way is cheating, but it's what I did for my third Read What You Own challenge. Was I pre-bought some books so that I could take part in challenges in like reading events and things like that during the period that I was going to be doing it. So yes, anyway, those are my thoughts on wrapping up my fourth Read What You Own challenge. The final question for me then really is, am I going to do it again? So we have been starting doing these challenges each November. November's 4 months away, so we'll see. But I'm almost questioning now whether I'm going to do it again this year. I may give myself a break. Anyway, I'll leave it there. If you've been taking part in the Read What You Own challenge yourself, do let me know in the comments what your experience has been. And as always, thanks very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well out there. Hope you're reading good stuff, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.